What's up, everybody? Well, today I'm here to show you another member of my vacuum collection. This time it's something I've had for quite a while now that I have not made a video on yet. Here I present to you my Rainbow D2a. Yes, you heard me right. It is a D2a. It's essentially an in-between model of the Rainbow D series. The D2a was essentially made in a time when Rainbow slowly started transitioning into the D3 series, and they changed up the motor design, but they still kept the old D2 body, although it's the later dark brown version instead of the copper or light brown version that you're so used to seeing with D2s. And initially, when I got this, I originally wanted the dark brown regular D2 with the older style motor. But the fact I managed to get a hold of a D2a is quite amazing, because this is a rare model, and some collectors have said that only like 8,000 of these D2as were made. And I'm lucky to have one of 8,000. So yeah, pretty much an older D2 body with a early style D3 motor. And I managed to buy this on eBay that I won at an auction for surprisingly not a whole lot of money. Of course, I since buying it for pretty cheap, I kind of figured something being sold for that, it's probably going to have some issues. And yes, this does have a couple issues here and there, and of course some I'll get to later on. But for now, I figured it's good enough to have all together to make a video out of. So for starters, the hose actually did not come with this. I actually took this old hose from my old Rainbow D3a, which is essentially the early style version of the D3 that has the 3-pin connector like these old D2s have. I pretty much put this on to try to make it look as period correct as I could, at least in the D2 standards. And honestly, I really like how this white hose looks on this compared to, say, that old two-tone like gold hose with little flakes in it, I should say. And coming down here, it does have its power brush that is included. This is a Eureka Rotomatic designed power brush, which the rainbow part number for this is, it is Rainbow R1024F. Basically, that's the design that has the brown label on the front with the little red, orange, and yellow logo right there, and your little rainbow lettering on the front. The only downfall of this are these two holes right here in the label, and that's for when the previous owner installed a new motor in the power brush, and they kind of forgot that you're supposed to peel this back as best as you can, very slowly, to get to those screws. Then you can install the new motor in. So just minor inconvenience, but at least the new motor is in. But I shouldn't say it's new, because it was replaced at one point. But there's still a little bit that needs to be done to it. Eventually, one of these whole days, I'm going to give the whole machine a service, because even the motor unit may need a little bit of work done to it. And the brush roll motor is starting to make a little bit of noise, but it still works for the time being. And the brush roll in this was also replaced. This is a replacement brush roll made by Cleveland Wood. It has soft dual row brush rolls. Fortunately, it has no beater bars. I do believe this brush roll may have been a donor from an older IEC TriStar, because they use this same brush roll design. which we all know this brush roll was made by Cleveland Wood, and they offered these as replacements for all the older rainbows with the Eureka head. Of course, the Eureka itself, but some IEC TriStars used this same brush roll design for their power heads. Early models of them would use the Eureka design, and then they would design their own that takes the Eureka part number of the brush roll. But it's a very nice chevron pattern that funnels all the dirt into the center suction path, and it definitely grooms and agitates very good for what it is. And back here you do have your rear wheels that kind of pivot so the head free floats on the carpet. So that's pretty interesting. So as we put it back up, it does lock in its upright position. However, to get it into the vacuuming position, you do have to push down on the head and then tilt it back. So that does take a little bit some getting used to, because a lot of the Rainbow R1650 design powerhead that came after this one doesn't lock in its upright position. The R4276 that they would include on the D4SE does, but not the R1650 or the R2800, which the R2800 was on the D4C non-SE. So as we move along to the motor unit, you do obviously have your main power brush connector right here. That is the 3-pin design. And it just connects in like so. So the wire is exposed on the hose and runs all the way up to where it connects to another point on the power brush right here that can be disconnected right there. There is a little carrier on the top end of the wand, which I really do like, and I really wish Rainbow continued making, even when they made the R1650 power brush. And it also can be locked by that tab right there. Another thing I really wish they stuck, but it's only for the D2s and the early D2as, which is a shame. Another one down here. And obviously the cord runs into the back of the power brush. So, back on the motor, because I honestly forgot where I was going. So anyway, this is the dark brown color scheme for this D2A. I really love this. It kind of looks a little bit better than the copper D2s, if I'm all honest, just from an aesthetic standpoint. So let's just disconnect the power head right here. The hose does come off right there in the opening. And it does have its original wheel caddy, which I'm very happy with, because a lot of the D2s I've seen on eBay do not, especially the dark brown ones, don't come with their color correct wheel caddy. Usually you'd have to run a copper D2. Of course, if you get one from a copper model, you could paint it brown to match the color of the cleaner. But then again, that would take away some of its originality. So I'm happy this one came with it. So as we move along back here, we do have obviously your toggle power switch right here. Your rainbow lettering on the back. Let me see if I can't show you guys the label here. Come on, focus. There it is. So anyway, this has 7.5 amps with just the motor itself. You can convert around that to 8 amps. 9.5 amps with the power brush running, so that's pretty much just 10 amps. There's all the model numbers, 120 volts, 25 to 60 hertz. It's 120 volts AC. Manufactured by Rexair Incorporated in Cadillac, Michigan. And there's the label right down here. It is model D2A, if you thought I was lying. And
saying this was a D2A and not just a dark brown late model D2. There it is right there to confirm. And to anyone who could serial date this, I want to say this was made in the early part of 1980, but if anyone could serial date this to confirm, I do believe, yes, it is 1980.
Okay, so turn this thing around to the front. Oh, and back here is your little exhaust cap that you could take off and mount the hose on the back to use as a blower. And let's unlatch the motor unit from the water basin to check inside there. I did pre-fill the water basin with water just for the demonstration portion later in the video. But this is a 2-quart water basin, not the biggest, so you are definitely going to fill this thing up pretty fast when you're using this on a heavy traffic house. Eventually, one of these days, I'm going to try looking for a replacement basin because, as you can see, there's some gouging right there along the sides, and there's obviously some questionable stains on the inside, and looks like maybe some stress cracks here and there, but it doesn't seem to leak on me, so I'm not too worried about that for now. So anyway, here's a better look at the wheel caddy underneath. So just a couple minor inconveniences here and there, but ones I will hopefully get to in due time. So let's take a look at the motor underneath. This does have a replacement suction motor put into it, which is more representative of the fact that D3 motors will swap into these older D2s. I do know the D2As use the same motor design that was carried over to the D3, but D3 motors will run in D2s if you desperately need a replacement motor. But the reason how I know this is a replacement motor is because the shaft on this has the longer motor shaft that's held in place by a nut instead of a screw. So, yeah, that's one key indicator that you have a later style motor. Another indicator is, one, you do have the late style separator, which usually this can be offered as a replacement even for older models, but this one does also have the plastic spider on the inside instead of the metal one. And also the motor design itself is a little bit different than the early style. So yeah, this definitely does have a replacement motor because my D3C, one of my later ones, has an equivalent motor design. So yeah, this motor was replaced here and there. It runs okay. I think one of these days I am going to have to tear it down and give it a full service. But for now, it runs good for what it is. So let's go ahead and set this back on the wheel caddy. Yeah, this thing holds on pretty tight. Sometimes you may need to do a little alignment to get it on the water basin so it seals up. Good. So now let's go ahead and release the power cord, which is in okay shape. It does have a little neck right here that I am going to probably need to look into a replacement for, but it works okay for the time being. And here's a better look at the exhaust cap with the cord not in the way. You could just pull this off right here. It normally would be attached by a little chain right here, but unfortunately that's been broken off ever since they replaced the motor. Surprisingly, this does hold in place, which is kind of a little issue that these D2s develop with over time, where this metal spring tends to lose its tension and the cap won't hold in place anymore. So good thing that thing still does. So for now, I'm just gonna do my little force of habit running down the cord to make sure it doesn't get any tangles. Plug this guy in. All right. And before I give this thing a main demonstration, I'm gonna not plug in the power brush for right now to give you a sound of the motor with just the motor running. So let's go ahead and do that. Does do a lot of plastic rattling, but I'm not too sure whether or not that should be considered normal or if that's a sign that I may need to give the motor a service. But it still seems to run pretty good for what it is. So let's go ahead and hook up the power brush and get to the part that you guys have been wanting to see, the turning on and running of this. So you got to put this thing in its vacuuming position, just push down on the top of the wand to release the power brush into its vacuuming position. And so, with that said, let's go ahead and turn this thing on and we'll get running. Yeah, the power of the brush just pulls this thing along. You never see that with canisters. Alright, this thing runs very nice and smooth. A little bit rough around the edges, but still quite an impressive member to the collection. Before we end the video, I will go ahead and talk about the attachments that this thing would come with. Now, normally this is for my Rainbow D3C, but it will fit pretty much any D series. So here I pretty much got all the included attachments here. I got here the dusting brush, crevice tool, bare floor tool, the upholstery tool, and the bare floor tool. And here is the separate hose that I have for them. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be doing any demonstration of them because this video is going a bit too long than expected. But if you guys want to see a demonstration of how these tools are in action, go ahead and give a watch of my other D series. Because I know I did one on my D3C. If memory serves me, I did one on the D2, the copper one. But yeah. So, but with that said, I hope you've enjoyed this full house cleaning of the Rainbow D2a. Be sure and stay tuned, and don't forget to like, rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.